As a teenager, I had always felt safe living on my family's farm in the middle of nowhere. But one terrifying night changed everything. It was a stormy evening, and my parents had gone out of town, leaving me alone in the farmhouse. I was watching a movie with my dog, Bear, when he suddenly perked up and started growling. I couldn't hear anything, so I dismissed it as an animal outside. But Bear's behavior persisted, and I eventually grabbed a gun and went to investigate. As I stepped out of the house, I saw a man curled up in a fetal position on the deck, trying to hide himself. I quickly retreated and locked all the doors and windows, then called the police. When they arrived, they searched the property but found nothing. I tried to shake off the incident and go to bed, but the next morning, I noticed that a knife was missing from the kitchen. I called the police again, and they found an old, scrawny man hiding in the basement with the missing knife in his possession. The man was arrested, but the incident left me shaken to the core. I couldn't stop thinking about what could have happened if he had found me sleeping. I became hypervigilant, locking all doors and windows and constantly checking the security cameras. But the terror didn't end there. A few weeks later, strange things started happening around the farm. Animals were mutilated, and we found strange symbols painted on the barn walls. I couldn't shake the feeling that we were being watched. One night, I woke up to find one of the barn doors wide open. I grabbed my gun and cautiously approached the door, but before I could investigate, something grabbed me from behind. When I came to, I was tied up in the barn, surrounded by a group of masked men. They were chanting and performing some sort of ritual, and I realized with horror that they were sacrificing animals. I managed to free myself and make a run for it, but the men chased after me. I was able to escape into the woods, but I knew that they were still out there, watching and waiting. I reported the incident to the police, but they were unable to find any evidence of the group or their activities. I felt like I was going insane, constantly looking over my shoulder and jumping at every noise. Years went by, and nothing else happened. But the memory of that night stayed with me, haunting me. I eventually moved away from the farm and started a new life, but I still couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. Years later, I received a letter in the mail from one of the men who had been part of the group that had attacked me. He claimed to have had a change of heart and wanted to apologize for what they had done. But the letter didn't provide any closure, it only raised more questions and brought back all the old fears and memories.
I was chatting with school friends, Emily and Tom, in an Xbox party when I heard a thumping sound from downstairs. I turned down the volume and took one headphone off my ear to listen. Nothing happened for the next 5 minutes, but then the sound came again. This time, I told my friends about it, and they joked that someone might have broken in. Emily suggested that we call her older brother, who was a police officer, to come check it out. Tom said we should investigate ourselves, but I was hesitant. Nonetheless, they convinced me to check it out during the next break in our game. When the break came, I took off my headphones and started walking towards the stairs. As I descended, I heard soft whispering. I froze up and listened intently, trying to make out if it was real or not. Eventually, I crouched down to get a look into the living room. There, I saw 4 fully grown men, all completely covered in black, silently walking around. I couldn't process what I was seeing, but I knew I had to get back upstairs. As I started to walk back up, I called Emily's brother and told him to come to my house immediately. I then called Emily and Tom and asked them to hurry over. I locked the door to my room and hid under the bed, hoping that the men wouldn't find me. I could hear multiple sets of boots slowly walking up the stairs as I sat in silence. They kept getting louder until I could hear banging on my bedroom door down the hall. Voices started yelling out, saying things like how I needed to open the door if I didn't want anything bad to happen to me. I was absolutely horrified. Just then, Emily and Tom arrived at the house. They called out to me, but I didn't answer, afraid that the men would hear them. Emily's brother arrived moments later, and they quickly made their way upstairs. When they got to my room, they found me hiding under the bed. Emily's brother ordered the men to surrender, but they refused. A shootout ensued, and one of the men was killed while the others managed to escape. After the incident, the police investigated and found out that the men were part of a notorious gang that had been robbing houses in the area. They were armed and dangerous and had been responsible for several break-ins and robberies. Emily's brother was hailed as a hero for his quick action and bravery. The incident left me traumatized, and I couldn't stop thinking about what could have happened if Emily's brother and my friends hadn't arrived in time. I was glad that they were there to protect me, and I was grateful for their quick thinking and bravery. It was a terrifying experience that I would never forget.
Not forget this terrifying experience, and neither do I. The incident had left us both shaken and constantly looking over our shoulders. After the break-in attempt, my parents became more cautious and made sure that we were never left home alone again. They also invested in a state-of-the-art security system that included cameras, motion detectors, and alarms. We felt safer, but the memory of that night stayed with us. A few years later, while I was in high school, something even more terrifying happened. It was a dark and stormy night, and I was home alone, studying for an upcoming exam. I had turned off all the lights in the house, except for the lamp on my desk. Suddenly, I heard a loud banging on the front door. I froze for a moment, then quickly got up to investigate. When I looked through the peephole, I saw a man standing outside, soaking wet from the rain. He looked disheveled and desperate. I hesitated for a moment, not sure what to do. Something about him seemed off, but I couldn't quite put my finger on it. He kept banging on the door, demanding to be let in, saying that he needed help. I decided to call the police, but as I reached for my phone, the man started to break down the door. I ran to my room and locked the door, then called the police. They told me to stay on the line and keep quiet until they arrived. The man was now inside the house, and I could hear him searching through the rooms. He was muttering to himself, and it sounded like he was looking for something specific. I was terrified and didn't know what to do. I could hear the man getting closer to my room, and I knew that I had to do something before he found me. I quickly looked around the room for anything that could be used as a weapon. My eyes landed on a heavy book on my desk, and I picked it up, ready to defend myself. Just then, I heard the sound of police sirens outside. The man must have heard them too because he started to run. I heard him crashing through the house and then the sound of the front door slamming shut. The police arrived a few minutes later and searched the area, but the man was nowhere to be found. The incident left me shaken, and I couldn't sleep for days. I was haunted by the thought of what could have happened if the police hadn't arrived in time. I learned the importance of being vigilant and always being prepared for the worst. As the years passed, I learned that the man who had broken into my house that fateful night was a wanted criminal who had been on the run from the police. He had been involved in several robberies and violent crimes, and the police were desperate to catch him. It was a relief to know that he had been caught, but the memory of that night stayed with me. Now, as an adult, I always make sure to keep my home secure and to be aware of my surroundings. I learned that danger can strike at any time, and it's always better to be prepared. The memory of that terrifying night will stay with me forever, but it also taught me to be strong and to never give up, even in the face of danger.